Okay,
All right, we're live.
all right. Welcome to the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. First order of business is call to order, and we'll log the time. Then we should go through a roll call. I'll start attending Brian Westcott.
Matt Normington is here.
Carol Long is here.
Vice Chair Cecilia Taylor is here.
Member Susanna Hill is here.
Michael, will you?
Mike DeMoss. I'm not sure how I log in so my picture shows up, but I'm in.
Okay. All right, very good. Next is review of the agenda, which agenda review includes, we'll look through the calendar consent. We'll look at approve the July 21st special meeting minutes. Then we have regular business, including review September 30th, 2022 investment report, which was sent out, and review the June 30th audit report. Any additions at this point? Okay. All right, then we'll approve that and proceed. Does anyone want to comment on the July 21st special meeting minutes? We'll put them up on the board here. Now we give a minute to, if you just, we can scroll through there. And any questions on the minutes?
This is Susanna Hill. I actually was not present for the meeting on the 21st.
Okay. Oh, so you're in. Okay, yeah, so we have to modify the roll call for Susanna Hill was not present. She was absent. Okay, we'll make that modification. Any other changes? Okay, well, would somebody like to then approve, give us a nomination for approval?
I'll make the motion to.
Go
I'll
ahead.
second.
Okay.
All right, very good. So the minutes for the 21st are approved. Let's move on to a regular business. And we should have a review of the investment report. Was that going to be a presentation, or is the finance director going to give us a short review? Or
yes, good evening, committee. We'll just do a short review. This is your September 30th investment report. And if you see on the first page of your staff report, remember I mentioned that there was going to be movement in the city's investments. And you see the amount in the late fund, about 6.3 million. The prior quarter, it was about 60 million. So remember I told you there was going to be movement. And so the actual portfolio last quarter was about 145, if my recollection, about 145. Now we're about 170. And we are going to continue to determine the liquid amount that should be liquid. Right now, we're leaving between the checking account, which is our Union Bank account, and LAIF, we're leaving about 25 million between both of those accounts. We are considering if both of those accounts should only be 15 million. But we are, obviously we want to make sure that we are liquid enough. But as you can see that we are taking advantage of the higher rates that are coming down corporate agencies now are coming out at 4.5, almost 5%. And so obviously we want to make sure that we're liquid enough. But when I do the next forecast of the general fund, you will see what I'm forecasting investments at. And so you'll see that. So other than that, the portfolio mix is fine. It's what it should be. We shouldn't be that, we should be as liquid as we are. And so the ESG rating, this is the rating that we were giving an attachment C, and it's still below 3. So it's still about 2.76. So it's still below 3. And so this is essentially what we're giving in terms of making sure that our investments in the corporate bonds are socially responsible. And so that's pretty much the activity in the portfolio. If you have any questions.
I just had one question. We should be benefiting, right, from the rates actually increasing? Or do you see the risk as any risk because of the economy and the inflation?
We're definitely, good question. We're definitely benefiting because when you see the balance in LAIF now is about 6.3 million, the balance was about 50 or 60 million. So what that means is that essentially we have placed most of that money from LAIF long term. And so LAIF is considered kind of like a liquid fund. And so as you see the interest rates rising, you kind of want to make sure that you're running from LAIF into the other rising interest rates. The risk, all of our investments are at least A. Some of them are at least A. We don't invest in anything triple B. So when you see our corporate bonds, we got like about 48 million in our corporate bonds, and those are at least A grade bonds, not triple B. So that's in terms of the risk of the portfolio. This is a good question.
Okay, very good.
I think Council.
I know there was some information on ESG sent out, and I actually have another article I'll have to send, but I think the general information is ESG is still in kind of its infancy, and it does move around, right? Have you seen a lot of movement in ESG for the portfolio?
I haven't. I mean, the ESG rating that we are receiving, this is attachment C. So the ESG rating that we're receiving associated with our corporate bonds is essentially the same one. Our corporate bonds, as you go and I see one bond, PPG Industries, rated triple B plus by S&P. However, Moody's is rating it A. So that's still a very solid bond. So I think we're good in terms of our ESG rating on the bonds that we have.
Okay, very good. Are there other questions from the committee or from the public?
Through the chair, I have a question. Actually, I have two questions. For on page 2 of 40, you have on the LAIF, you have XX%. At least that's what it shows on my staff report. What is the XX?
That's a good question. That's that was me putting the staff report together very fast. But XX should be 1.51%.
Okay.
So 1.51%. And that's why we want to be, we don't want to be heavy in LAIF now, because we can get 4 to 4.5% on our treasuries that are coming out. So we don't want to be too much in LAIF at 1.5.
Okay. And then my next question is, you said for the union bank account that we have about 25 million and you're considering 15 million. what would determine the $10 million transfer?
That's a good question. Councilmember Taylor, that's a good question. What we're doing is that the amount of liquidity that we can go down to between Union Bank and LAIF is the timing of the capital project spending. Also the timing of when we receive our property tax payouts. And so we're looking at that, and Dave and I haven't kind of brought that to Justin, but we're thinking about the overall liquidity for the city probably should be around 15. Right now it's 25. So that means we got 10 million that we could perhaps be making a little bit more on, but we're watching it before we pull the trigger on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, good, great question.
So I have a quick question for you. And part of this is just being new and maybe just my ignorance to the process. But once money is transferred out of the Union Bank check account into one of the either bonds into bonds, how difficult is it if you needed for short-term liquidity purposes to move that back into into the Union Bank account? Is that easy? Is there a penalty? What is the risk of transferring that money into bonds at this time?
And that's a very good question. Look at your staff report on page 1, and you can kind of see the way the market is moving and the risks that you would have if you had to sell a security before it amortized. So the amortized basis of your portfolio is 174 million, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If you had to liquidate your entire portfolio tomorrow, how much would you get? 167.
Okay.
Now, I'm just obviously the city does not liquidate its portfolio unless something drastic happens. But essentially your amortized cost versus your fair value basis is the risk that you run if you can't hold it to maturity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
But the city holds its investments pretty much to maturity. And when they get called, some of these are, some of these have like a 5-year call on them. So essentially the city would not realize this loss unless it has to just liquidate. And it won't have to, just based upon government spending and practices.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So those are great questions. I will correct the XX when the report goes to the full council. I'll correct the XX.
Great, okay. And any other questions? Again, from the committee or public? Clarifications? Now, as a committee, I'm not sure we approve this or we just review it, and the next step is to present it to the council, correct?
That is correct. The committee is recommending receipt of the report to council.
Okay. Very good. So is there any issues at this point? It sounds like we have agreement. And you can, with that minor correction, I think it's been reviewed and you can proceed. Okay, very good. Next order of regular business then is to review the June 30th audit report.
Okay, thanks, council. Excuse me, committee. And this is the single audit for the city. And the single audit is it's a financial requirement of all entities that are spending more than $750,000 in federal grants, whether it's passed through the state or passed through the county. And so this is a requirement. And this single audit was not due until the end of September 30th. And we did meet our compliance. We filed it on the 28th, September 28th, but they gave us an extension because of COVID. So the report itself was due, they're always due 9 months after the close of a fiscal year. So ours was due March 31st, and we got the extension to September 30th. And so we did meet that extension. The auditors did not find any findings associated with our federal grants. The single audit is in combination with the overall financial audit. So the single audit, what it does is that it looks at the fundings for the grants in terms of the spending from the grants, but it is supplemented by the overall financial audit, which is testing your internal controls and everything. And so that's why you see that the paragraph underneath analysis, I mentioned that the weaknesses that were identified in our financial system, the management team has responded to those corrective actions. And so this single audit is clean. It's a clean single audit.
Okay.
And it has been filed with the actual audit board. I think Adrian actually filed it for us. So Adrian filed it for us. So if there are any questions on the single audit?
I have a quick question. Are the significant deficiency and the material weakness that were identified, are those new or are those duplicative of the ones I know we had reviewed some in a prior meeting? Is this just duplicate of those same findings from the prior audit report?
Good question. That is correct. These are material weaknesses associated with us essentially transitioning over to OpenGov, kind of in the middle of the audit. And so we shouldn't have these findings at the end of our 22 financials. So this single audit here is for June 30th, 2021. So we shouldn't have these same findings for June 30th, 2022. We shouldn't have these.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is posted in OpenGov for Menlo Park, if the audit.
This is actually uploaded to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. This is the federal kind of like database for all single audits.
Okay,
We don't this single audit report will be included with our CAFRs, like on our website. It's going to be there. We're going to have it on our
okay.
CAFR.
So if the public wants to review it, it will be available.
Yes, without a doubt.
Okay, very good. And again, I think as a committee, we're just reviewing, there's no approval here.
Exactly. What the committee probably would do is what the question just came along. Has the finance team addressed the findings adequately? You know.
Right. Any other questions on that matter from the committee?
I was wondering if you could provide just a little more details on how the material weaknesses were being remediated.
Yes, that's without a doubt. Right now, one of the material weaknesses was that we recorded, we expensed land when it should not have been expensed. And so that's essentially, that was an easy catch. So that one won't happen again. The other one was that because we were transitioning over from accounting systems, we had too many correcting entries. So I've looked at the correcting entries for June 30th, 2022, and there's only like 1 or 2. So that was essentially corrected. So it shouldn't, like I mentioned, for the June 2022, there won't be many findings, maybe 1 or 2.
Good, very good. So at this point, that I assume has been sent to the council as well, or will be.
Yes, this will go to council on December the 6th.
Okay.
So this report will go December 6th.
And our committee has no issues with that. Okay, very good. Okay, now I think that is the end of regular business. I had a question for the council. I think due to COVID, I've been on the committee a few years. And we have the standard business. But my question for city council was, are there areas that you would like the Finance and Audit Committee to look into or review? Relative to the finance and audit of Menlo Park. And one example, which I know we're working on, and we probably should summarize it for the next meeting, is just the use of ESG, basic parameters. I would say the state of it. I mean, there have been several articles written on, how stable it is, what the real effectiveness is as it evolves, because it's a relatively new measure. So that would be one area the committee could look into. But historically, the council actually had some areas that they were interested in us looking into further. So that's somewhat of a request, or opening that up for future meetings. If the council might, at one of the meetings, just discuss if there's other areas that they would like the Finance and Audit Committee to look into. So. Yes, we have a question from city council member. I don't have her name.
Cecilia Taylor.
Cecilia, could you have the floor? I think you're on
Thank you.
mute.
I
Yes.
appreciate your question and just wanted to see if staff was going to follow up.
Yeah, we most certainly can consider whether we should make the ESG rating as part of our investment policy. Right now, it's not. So I would recommend creating a separate policy for ESG, but what this would be included in the investment policy some kind of way.
And to expand on that a little bit, Chair Westcott, is that usually the commissions or committees put together a work plan, and then it goes in front of the council, and then the council reviews it, makes additions or accepts it as is. And I'm not sure if there's, if the staff can share, if there's any new, I won't say new, but if there's any plans to actually bring that discussion to an agenda for the Finance and Audit Committee.
Great.
Also too, probably considering once you put ESG in the policy has to adhere to it. But the way it is now is we have flexibility in terms of it floating. So, once you put it in a policy and if one of the bonds push it over or something, then you can't buy that bond. So you just got to kind of consider that before you put it in a policy.
Right, and I'm not suggesting there should be a policy. In fact, I'm agreeing that I don't think the measure is ready to be implemented as a hard policy, but all I was saying, and I think the point about coming up with a work plan and just reviewing ESG and what other people might be doing and discussion would be part of that work plan. But as part of this meeting, maybe what I was hoping for is usually I think in the past, the council would come to us with a few things that they wanted us to look at in the work plan. Now, if the committee itself has some areas that they might want us to consider in a work plan, we can open up the meeting at this point to discuss those as well. But I would suggest some review of ESG, and not as a policy, but just the state of where it is and its maturity before it was considered as a policy. And any other topic.
Chair West,
Yes, go
I'm
ahead.
definitely in support of that, but just keeping in mind with what we have on the agenda today. And it's possible, and I know in the past that finance and audit committees have put together subcommittees. So they
Right.
can generate, and then you bring it back to the full committee. But just to make sure we are in line with the Brown Act, that we are only discussing items that are on the agenda.
Okay,
I
well,
would be supportive of bringing it back and having it agendized.
all right, let's add that then to the agenda for the next meeting. And I believe at this point, we only have regular meetings scheduled. If we need a special meeting before the end of the year, we can discuss that as well. But on the regular agenda, I think that is the complete meeting, so we can move to adjourn. Does anyone?
There are two, looks like there was a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have one hand. Committee member, yes.
I wonder, am I the one that raised the hand? Mike
So
DeVos?
Carol Wong.
Carol Wong has her hand raised. Please, Carol.
Yes, I have my hand raised. It was more of a clarification point for the ESG agenda item. Chairman Westcott, I was just wondering, are you looking at it only from an investment perspective, or are you thinking of something broader, as in whether the city's finances would be better if there was more ESG initiatives?
Well, I think from what I've read, there's in general in the finance community, there's some, not, I wouldn't say concern, but saying that the ESG as a measurement is still not that well developed in how stable it is. And so if we move it, for instance, if people use it as a hard criteria, is it ready for that? You know, or does it move too quickly? And that was why we had the question earlier about where our ESG number is, moving. But so from a work plan standpoint, which I know I can't stray too far from the agenda, it would be a general review of what people are thinking about the ESG, finance type people, and its maturity, frankly. How mature is it? How exact? I mean, we have it down to 10, a decimal, but is it really that exact a measure at this point? Okay, I have a thing. Don't know these things. We have Michael. Yes, you have your hand raised.
Yes, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We can.
At the last meeting, you asked for some input on ESG. And so my brother's an advisor with Wells Fargo Advisors. And then he sent me some information I forwarded to you. And I don't know if it goes to the whole committee, but it showed that ESG was returning 10% less. So just to provide information, I think we'd have to consider whether or not the general population would be interested in receiving 10% less return in exchange for the ESG, but it's just the information that I wanted to share, and I don't know if it got to everyone.
Okay.
That's all I have.
And for this meeting today, what it sounds like is, Michael, we should form a subcommittee and gather all that information and then make a presentation at the committee meeting here.
I see. That's fine.
Okay, so it does sound like you might be interested in being part of that. if we have a subcommittee.
That'd be fine.
Okay, very good. And Suzanne Hill, we have a hand.
Thank you, Chair. To further on the topic of ESG, if we are returning to the council, if we agendize it for our next meeting, and if part of it is to return to the city council in order to get guidance on what they are interested in knowing, I would ask also of the city council that we get their direction as to what the city needs, what ESG is serving in terms of the goals of the financial plan and the city's needs, just so that we can evaluate the costs and benefits of ESG within some context.
Okay, very good. So staff, we can. I think one of the work requirements for maybe for the next meeting is if you can survey the council and see if they have areas that they would like the finance audit committee to look into. One specifically being ESG. Then at the next meeting, we can address those issues by probably forming subcommittees and work groups and make that part of the agenda for the next meeting. All
Sounds
right,
like-
very good.
And I think Adrian had pointed out that our next meeting might have a conflict with one of the other committees. I was thinking, I think he was saying there was a conflict with one of the other committees.
Is that?
Yes, yeah, the next meeting would be on the third Wednesday of the next quarter, which I think falls on, I think it's January 18th,
Okay,
which is the same day as another committee meets within a half hour of each other. And because of that scheduling conflict, I don't think we would be able to meet at the regular 5:30 time. We would have to schedule the meeting for either a different time on the same day or a different day that does not conflict with that or other meetings.
so presently we're the third Wednesday or Thursday? I'm sorry.
Third Wednesday of each quarter, I think.
Could we move it to the next day, the Thursday?
We'll have to confirm that there's no other,
Okay,
that there's no other meetings that it would conflict with where we run into the same issue.
right. Or the alternative is, I know with people's time, could we move it a half hour later?
Half hour later would not work, I believe, because
Okay.
that would be the exact same start time. So I think we would have to move it earlier in order to alleviate that possible conflict.
Well, could we review maybe having it the next day or finding a day within a week that it meets the requirements and potentially push it out if we need to, rather than pull it in, given it's January. Okay, we'll review the calendar then and update the committee on that. Very good. Okay, Cecilia, we have another hand, City Council.
Thank you, Chair Westcott. I just wanted to find out if it's possible to still do a meeting in December, if possible, if it doesn't work for the January date.
Yes, we could move to a meeting in maybe mid-December. I believe that would then be a special meeting. But if part of that meeting, I think would be useful to work on set up a work plan and move some of these items into that meeting. Is there a date, Alex, we could maybe for a special meeting for the finance and audit, maybe. I would think earlier, maybe. That around the mid part of December, maybe second week.
So we, let's see, so our regular meeting would be on January 18th to 23rd. I think we could push it to the following day, Thursday, if that works. I don't think that would conflict with any other committee meetings. As for the December calendar. Or an earlier special meeting in December.
I wasn't sure, I wasn't had a question. At the special meeting, I wasn't sure what we were trying to address.
I believe that the focus would be on a work plan for the next year. But city council, did you have other agenda items that you wanted to have in the December meeting?
No, that would be the only item.
Okay, I believe a special meeting, it would be probably in this hybrid format would be useful. That way we can get a good start for the following year.
Yeah, we could schedule one for Thursday, December 15th, I think is
All
available
right.
if that works as an option.
Okay, so the proposal, and then you said could have a regular meeting January, at least tentatively, we would try for January, what date?
January 19th, which is a Thursday
Okay.
as well.
Okay, so the proposal is the tentative dates of a special meeting held December 15th. And I assume we'd start probably 5:30. If it works, 5:30, and also to have a regular meeting. A day later, it would be January 19th. 2023, also at 5:30. And the agenda, one of the main agenda items for the December 15th special meeting, which would be good to get input from different, maybe the staff can survey the council on items that they would like the finance and audit committee to look into. And one we have already determined would be the role of ESG, let's say, in investment policy, but it's a role we don't make policy. We would just want to review ESG, maybe what others are using it for and how to use it at this point. So that's an example, but we're open to other items, and that way we can form subcommittees and I think have a productive 2023 as we, return to kind of normal business.
I was gonna perhaps submit this inquiry to our city manager and have him reach out to council.
That'd be very good, yes. Because in the past, we've had guidance. I know one thing that we looked into was pension. But there were a number of areas, and that's what the committee's supposed to do, is serve, the council and be able to spend a little more time on issues that they, would like more information on. So it'd be terrific if we could submit that and be ready.
One thing, perhaps one thing I could include for our council is that the city's OPEB trust is completely funded with a credit in there. And so essentially that OPEB trust could be used to pay annual premiums as opposed to budgeting them. So this may be some direction that council can determine if they want to use that trust as opposed to annually budgeting for that.
Okay, so that could be another work plan item as an advisory position on that specific topic.
It would be significant.
Okay, No, those are great ideas. I think that's what we need to do is go beyond, our day-to-day. Just review of the audits and the budget and the investment, which of course is important. But I think we have a good group here and we should extend to these subcommittees and address some of these issues. So, and staff will notify us if those meeting dates, and then we'll contact the committee and get them on our calendar. Okay. Any other work items or agenda items that people want to cover or add? Okay. Well, I think in that case, we can adjourn the meeting. Does anybody want to motion to adjourn? Approve?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, Suzanne will motion to adjourn. Any second?
I'll second.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.